The first time I realized I was waiting for another man's message, my husband was sitting right across from me at the dinner table. Daniel was talking about interest rates or football or something else that used to matter to us once. The television hummed softly in the background. Rain tapped against the kitchen window. And there I was staring at my phone under the table like a teenager hiding a secret. I remember thinking very clearly, something is wrong with me. But even then I still checked the screen again. Nothing. And somehow that disappointed me more than it should have. My name is Melissa. I'm 39 years old, married for nearly 14 years, mother of one teenage daughter, owner of a perfectly ordinary life that looked completely fine from the outside. That's the dangerous thing about loneliness, I think. Sometimes nobody notices it until it's already swallowed you whole. Daniel wasn't cruel. I need to say that first. He never shouted, never cheated, never disappeared for days or came home smelling like another woman's perfume. He paid bills on time, fixed shelves when they broke, kissed my forehead before work. But somewhere over the years he stopped seeing me. Not all at once. That would have been easier to fight. It happened slowly, quietly, like lights dimming room by room inside a house until one day you realize you're sitting in darkness. I didn't understand it then, but I was already starving for attention long before Noah walked into my life. The first time I met him was at the petrol station near our neighborhood. My car had started making a strange rattling sound, and I was standing outside pretending I understood engines while panicking internally. Then this voice behind me said softly, "That noise definitely shouldn't be there." I turned around and saw him smiling. Not flirtatiously, just kindly. Noah looked younger than me by at least 8 or 9 years. Early 30s maybe. Dark hair, tired eyes, oil stains on his hands. He told me he'd recently opened a small mechanic shop 2 streets over. He took one quick look under the bonnet and explained the problem in plain English instead of speaking to me like I was stupid. That alone caught me off guard. Most people hear engine issue and immediately prepare for financial ruin, he joked. I laughed harder than the comment deserved. And for some reason his eyes stayed on me half a second longer than normal. My breath caught. Not because of attraction. Not yet. It was because I realized I hadn't felt noticed in such a long time. After that, I started seeing him occasionally. Morning coffees from the cafe near his garage. Quick conversations when I passed by after grocery shopping. Harmless little exchanges about weather, traffic, life. Tiny things. But tiny things become dangerous when they arrive in an empty place. That's when something changed. I began looking forward to those conversations more than I should have. One morning he handed me my coffee before I'd even ordered it. Flat white, no sugar, right? Such a small detail. And yet I sat in my car afterwards feeling oddly emotional because somebody had remembered something about me. Do you know how heartbreaking that is? To feel grateful just because someone pays attention. Weeks passed like that. Nothing inappropriate, nothing obvious. But there were moments. Silences that lingered too long. Glances that felt heavier than they should have. One afternoon I caught myself fixing my hair in the mirror before walking into his shop, and the guilt hit me so suddenly I almost turned around and left. I should have stopped then, but I didn't. At home, Daniel barely looked up from his laptop most evenings. We existed beside each other like polite flatmates sharing responsibilities. Sometimes I'd stand in the kitchen talking about my day and realize halfway through that he wasn't listening at all. Meanwhile, Noah listened to everything. Not dramatically, not performatively. He just listened. And once someone makes you feel heard after years of silence, it becomes addictive. The rainstorm happened in October. Cold. Relentless. One of those dark evenings where the sky turns nearly black before dinner. My car broke down 20 minutes from home on an empty road, steam pouring from the front while rain hammered against the windscreen. I remember gripping the steering wheel trying not to cry because lately everything felt like too much. Then I called no. Not Daniel. Even now, admitting that makes my stomach twist. Noah arrived 40 minutes later soaked through from the rain, apologizing for the delay while checking the engine with a torch between his teeth. "You're freezing," he said. "I am fine." "You're shaking." The silence after that felt too heavy. By the time he got the car running again, the storm had become impossible to drive through safely. Roads were flooding. Visibility was awful. So when we finally reached my house, I heard myself say it before I fully thought it through. "You can come inside for coffee until the rain settles." He hesitated. Just for a second. Then nodded. I still remember every detail from that night. The soft yellow kitchen light. Rain hitting the windows. The smell of coffee and wet clothes. Daniel was away on a business trip, and the house felt strangely unfamiliar without him there. Too quiet. Too intimate. Noah sat at the kitchen counter while I wrapped my hands around a mug mostly to stop them trembling. We talked for hours. At first it was harmless. Childhood stories. Work frustrations. Music. Then somehow the conversation shifted. He asked if I was happy. Nobody had asked me that in years. And I don't know what happened inside me after that, but suddenly everything started pouring out. The loneliness. The exhaustion. How invisible I'd begun to feel as I got older. How sometimes I'd sit beside my husband and feel completely alone. Noah didn't interrupt once. He just listened quietly while rain filled the silence between us. At one point I realized I was crying, which embarrassed me instantly. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "For what?" "For saying all this." He looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "You deserve to be listened to, Melissa." Something shifted inside me then. Not physical. Worse. Emotional. Because I believed him. And when someone outside your marriage starts giving you the emotional safety you stopped feeling at home, lines begin to blur. Nothing happened that night. That's the truth. No kissing. No touching. Nothing you could point to and clearly label betrayal. But when he stood to leave, we paused near the front door for a second too long. Close enough that I could hear his breathing. Close enough that my entire body became painfully aware of him. And for one terrifying moment I didn't want him to leave. I think he felt it too. Then he stepped back quietly and said, "Good night, Melissa." After he left, I stood at the door listening to the rain and feeling like I'd crossed into somewhere dangerous. Tell me honestly, is emotional betrayal still betrayal if nothing physical happens? Because after that night, everything changed. I started hiding messages, deleting conversations, waiting for his replies during family dinners, smiling at my phone when Daniel wasn't looking. And the guilt became unbearable because part of me knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't in love. Not yet. But I was attached. Maybe even dependent. That's the part nobody talks about. Emotional affairs don't usually begin with passion. Sometimes they begin with relief. Relief that somebody still sees you. Weeks later, Noah finally said the thing both of us had been avoiding. We were standing outside his garage near closing time, cold air curling between us. "I think about you too much," he admitted quietly. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. "You shouldn't say that." "I know." but neither of us moved. I should have walked away then. Instead, I whispered, "I think about you too." Even now, that confession feels more intimate than a kiss. That's when I realized this was no longer harmless. And suddenly I saw my life clearly for the first time in years. The problem wasn't no. The problem was that I'd been disappearing inside my marriage for so long that the smallest amount of warmth felt overwhelming. Noah wasn't some fantasy prince rescuing me. He was simply the first person who noticed I was drowning. I didn't run away with him. I didn't destroy my marriage overnight. But a week later, I finally sat across from Daniel and told him the truth. Not every detail, but enough. Enough to admit I was lonely. Enough to admit our marriage had become emotionally empty. Enough to admit I couldn't survive another 10 years pretending everything was fine. And for the first time in a very long time, Daniel actually listened. Really listened. We're still figuring things out now. Some days I think we'll survive this. Other days I'm not sure. I still see Noah occasionally when my car needs servicing, though never alone for long. There's distance now, caution. But sometimes our eyes meet for a second too long, and I remember exactly how close I came to becoming someone I never thought I'd be. Or maybe someone painfully human. Was I wrong, or was I simply lonely? Would things have happened differently if my husband had noticed me sooner? And if nothing physical happened, why does it still feel like I crossed a line that night? I still don't fully know the answer. What I do know is this. The most dangerous relationships aren't always the loud, passionate ones. Sometimes they begin quietly. With coffee. With rain against the windows. With somebody listening to you a little too carefully when your own husband stopped listening years ago. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and stay for the next confession. And tell me in the comments, where do you think emotional cheating really begins?